This is why a narcissist stops having sex with you, to make you feel this. There is a truth people rarely speak aloud, the moment when intimacy suddenly freezes, when a once warm connection turns cold enough to make your heart question its own worth. You begin to wonder what shifted in the shadows. What changed? What did I do wrong? Am I no longer desirable? Psychologists say this reaction is deeply human because sexual rejection, especially when it's sudden and unexplained, activates the same neural pathways associated with abandonment trauma. And with a narcissist, this wound is not an accident. It becomes a tool, a cruel, calculated method of control that leaves scars long after the relationship ends. When a narcissist stops having sex with you, it is rarely about physical desire. Psychologists describe it instead as a psychological maneuver, punishment fused with power. In fact, sex becomes a silent form of manipulation, a nonverbal language through which the narcissist asserts dominance. They are not responding to emotional connection. They are responding to the psychology of control, of supply, of ego. That is why so many survivors report that this experience damages them more deeply than shouting, arguments, or even infidelity. Withholding intimacy attacks the core of your identity, your confidence, and your sense of being lovable. At the beginning, everything felt perfect, and psychologists emphasize this is no coincidence. Narcissists mirror you with surgical precision. They reflect back your ideal partner, the person you dream of, crave, and finally feel safe with. This mirroring is a psychological seduction technique that creates an illusion of compatibility. It magnetizes you. You don't fall in love with them. You fall in love with the version of yourself they project back at you. And when someone finally sees you in that way, the emotional high is intoxicating. Neuropsychologists describe it as a dopamine flood, an addictive chemical rush that bonds you to the narcissist before you even realize what's happening. But once the narcissist secures your attachment, the withdrawal begins. This is the moment that shocks victims the most, because it feels like intimacy evaporates overnight. Psychologists call this a sexual imprint. The narcissist creates an early peak experience so powerful that your brain registers it as a template of connection. Then they strategically remove it. Your mind becomes wired to crave what was once given freely. This is the psychological root of the trauma bond. You keep longing for the person they pretended to be, not the person they actually are. Your brain forms schemas, internal maps, based on those early experiences. Because the narcissist imprinted intense passion, affection, and attention, you internalize the belief that this person is special. This person is my soulmate. This connection is irreplaceable. So when they suddenly pull away, the emotional shock is severe. Depression, confusion, self-blame. It all rushes in. Psychologists explain that inconsistency in intimacy keeps you psychologically off balance, making you easier to control. You begin chasing that early affection, believing you can earn it back if you try harder, love deeper, or become better. This is precisely what the narcissist wants. They decide when intimacy happens. They decide when it stops. They decide when you are starved and when you are fed. Psychologists compare this to behavioral conditioning, very similar to how authoritarian systems manipulate people. Give someone something they desperately want, then take it away. The person becomes dependent, desperate to regain what was lost. This push and pull dynamic isn't random. It is psychological warfare disguised as romance. The narcissist knows you crave the connection they created. They know you won't easily leave. They know withholding intimacy will keep you longing, questioning, doubting yourself. And the more you question yourself, the more control they have. This is the architecture of the trauma bond. This is the psychological blueprint of narcissistic control. And understanding it, truly understanding it, is the first step toward reclaiming your power. Because once you see the pattern, once you recognize that the intimacy was a strategy and not a reflection of your worth, you begin to loosen the chains the narcissist hoped you would never escape. Psychologists often emphasize that this shift, where the narcissist becomes bored, restless, or dissatisfied, is not rooted in anything you've done or failed to do. It is rooted in their internal emptiness, an emotional void that prevents them from sustaining genuine intimacy. What feels like comfort to healthy partners feels like stagnation to a narcissist. because consistency does not generate the same dopamine spike that newness does. This is why they begin rationing intimacy like an unpredictable reward system. They decide how much access you get to their body, their attention, and their affection, because unpredictability heightens your emotional dependence. It is the exact mechanism psychologists describe in the cycle of intermittent reinforcement, a psychological trap so powerful it can rewire your attachment system and keep you bonded to someone who is actively harming you. When the narcissist weaponizes sex, they are not merely withholding physical pleasure, they are punishing you. And punishment in this context is silent, psychological, and deeply personal. If you expressed a boundary, questioned their behavior, failed to meet an unspoken expectation, or simply stopped feeding their ego at the rate they demand, the narcissist retaliates through withdrawal. They know that physical intimacy represents connection, closeness, and emotional reassurance for you. They know that sex communicates desire, love, and approval. Psychologists explain that emotional abusers often choose this form of punishment precisely because it targets your deepest insecurities. The fear of being unwanted, unworthy, or replaceable. The narcissist exploits this fear to regain control, ensuring that you return to them in a submissive, apologetic state, even when you've done nothing wrong. And so the punishment becomes cyclical. Every time intimacy is withheld, you feel compelled to earn it back. You try harder. You silence your needs. You walk on eggshells. Psychologists warn that this instinct, to internalize their rejection and blame yourself, is a symptom of trauma bonding. Instead of recognizing their behavior as abuse, the victim believes they must fix themselves to restore harmony. This psychological distortion is exactly what keeps the narcissist in power and the victim emotionally trapped. The spiritual dimension of intimacy complicates this even further. Many psychologists and trauma specialists acknowledge that sexual connection can facilitate the exchange of emotional, psychological, and even energetic states. The narcissist senses this and uses it to their benefit. During intimate moments, they absorb your admiration, your vulnerability, your devotion, your life force, as some therapists describe it. It reinflates their fragile ego. But once they have taken what they need, they retreat, starving you of the same connection they so easily consumed. Survivors often describe this dynamic as energetic theft, and while clinical psychologists frame it in terms of emotional extraction, the metaphor remains accurate. The narcissist drains you to refuel themselves. This is where the supply cycle truly reveals its cruelty. In the narcissist's world, your body was never yours, it was an instrument that validated them. At the beginning, you were shiny, exciting, and full of emotional nutrients they could feed on. Psychologists call this phase idealization, where the victim is objectified, glamorized, and consumed like a product. But objects lose novelty. Objects wear out. Objects stop thrilling their owners. And so, once you become familiar, once you develop emotional needs, once you stop being endlessly entertaining, they no longer treat you as a source of pleasure but as a burden. This is why they begin seeking new supply, not because you lack value, but because their ego requires constant novelty to feel alive. They discard emotional intimacy because emotional intimacy requires authenticity, something psychologically intolerable for them. Healthy closeness demands vulnerability, empathy, reciprocity. These are qualities a narcissist cannot sustain. So instead, they detach from you and chase new sources of admiration, stimulation, and validation. Their withdrawal has nothing to do with your desirability and everything to do with their emotional immaturity. But here is the psychological twist that many victims never see until it's too late. The moment the narcissist withdraws, your desire for them increases. Trauma specialists explain that the brain interprets inconsistent affection as a threat to attachment. So instead of pulling away from the person hurting you, you cling tighter. You remember the intensity of the beginning. You replay the sexual imprint they intentionally created. You tell yourself the intimacy was real, the connection was special, the chemistry was unique. But psychologists make this clear. The narcissist engineered those early moments to ensure exactly this outcome. This is why recovery requires more than simply walking away. It requires untangling the psychological spell they cast. It requires understanding that their withdrawal is not proof of your inadequacy, but proof of their disorder. It requires learning to redirect the longing they manufactured back toward yourself, your healing, and your autonomy. And most importantly, it requires recognizing that you were never unworthy. You were manipulated by someone who used the most sacred form of connection as a weapon. When you allow them to withdraw without chasing, you disrupt the very psychological pattern that sustains their control. Psychologists explain that in trauma-bonded relationships, the victim's instinct is to pursue closeness whenever connection is threatened, because your nervous system has been conditioned to associate their withdrawal with danger. Your body interprets their silence as abandonment, and abandonment registers as emotional death. But the truth, as every trauma therapist will tell you, is that your urge to chase is not love. It is survival mode. And the moment you refuse to react, you interrupt the conditioning they've worked so carefully to create. This is where the narcissist begins to panic beneath the surface, though they will never admit it. Their withdrawal was designed to provoke you, to pull you back into the orbit of self-blame and emotional desperation. When that doesn't happen, psychologists say narcissists experience what is called narcissistic dysregulation, a sudden spike of anxiety caused by losing control of your emotional responses. They may accuse you of not caring, or they may provide breadcrumb gestures to lure you back in. But these reactions reveal the truth. The power dynamic was always the point. Intimacy was simply the currency. The moment you do not comply, the moment you no longer validate their superiority or emotional dominance, you disrupt their psychological supply line. In clinical terms, you become an inconsistent source of narcissistic supply, and this destabilizes them. Their grandiosity begins to fracture. Their entitlement becomes threatened. So instead of deepening the bond or repairing the rupture, they escalate, testing new ways to regain the upper hand. They may flirt with someone else, withdraw further, become cold, or even lash out. But every one of these reactions is a performance rooted in the same fragile truth. They need your emotional devotion more than they need genuine intimacy. And here is the heartbreaking irony that psychologists emphasize. While you spiral into self-doubt, questioning your attractiveness, your worthiness, your desirability, the narcissist experiences your suffering as confirmation of their importance. This is why they keep you in emotional limbo. This is why the hot and cold cycle never stops. Your attempts to prove your worth become a mirror that reflects back their superiority. Meanwhile, your own self-concept deteriorates. You lose the ability to see yourself clearly. You internalize their rejection as evidence that something is wrong with you, not with the relationship's toxic structure. This distortion of self-perception is one of the most damaging psychological impacts of narcissistic withdrawal. Clinical psychologists call it ego erosion, a process in which repeated invalidation leads to an internal collapse of self-worth. You start believing that you are unlovable unless you earn love through sacrifice. You begin equating desire with pain, closeness with instability, and intimacy with conditional approval. These are not truths. These are the cognitive scars of emotional conditioning. And this is exactly why recovery requires a complete reversal of the pattern. Instead of proving your worth to them, you must reclaim your worth for yourself. Instead of chasing their attention, you must redirect your energy inward. Psychologists recommend grounding techniques, nervous system regulation, and detachment practices to retrain the brain's response to withdrawal. Each time you resist the urge to pursue them, you are rewiring your neural pathways. You are teaching your brain that their silence is not a threat. You are teaching your heart that their rejection is not a reflection of your value. Once you stop chasing, something profound happens. Clarity returns. You begin to see the relationship for what it truly was, an emotional illusion built on intermittent reward, psychological manipulation, and conditional affection. Without the fog of longing, you can finally examine their behavior through the lens of truth rather than trauma. You recognize that their love was never love. Their intimacy was never intimacy. Their desire was never desire. It was all a psychological transaction designed to keep you tethered. And when you finally accept this truth, a shift occurs inside you. The spell breaks. The power dynamic collapses. You no longer respond to their manipulation with fear. You respond with neutrality. And neutrality, as psychologists emphasize, is the greatest threat to a narcissist. It signals that you are no longer emotionally owned. It signals that the cycle is over. It signals that you have reclaimed yourself. When you attempt to win back affection that is being deliberately withheld from you, what actually happens is that you unintentionally strengthen the very power imbalance that is harming you, reinforcing their dominance and slipping even deeper into a dynamic that undermines your emotional well-being. Continuing to chase their approval only traps you further in a cycle that benefits them and hurts you. So stepping away from that pattern becomes essential for your healing. The real work begins when you turn your attention inward, redirecting your emotional energy back to your own mind and body, and slowly rebuilding the connection with yourself that the relationship has eroded. This means grounding yourself, reclaiming your sense of presence, and learning to distinguish genuine intimacy from the need to earn approval. Two experiences that should never have been intertwined in the first place. One of the most crucial truths to understand is that rejection from a narcissistic partner is never a commentary on your worth, your attractiveness, or your identity. It is simply a reflection of their own internal fractures. By truly absorbing this perspective, you begin to see the situation clearly, and that clarity allows you to move forward with decisions rooted in self-respect rather than fear or longing. You must also allow yourself to mourn the imagined version of them that never actually existed, mourn the illusion of connection you hoped was real but never was, and mourn the dream of the relationship you believed you were building together. Once you recognize that this person was emotionally damaged long before you met them, and that their capacity for genuine partnership was always limited, you begin to understand that the absence of reciprocity was never your fault. You were fully capable of offering them what they needed, but they were, and still are, incapable of returning that emotional depth to you. This imbalance makes the entire dynamic profoundly unfair to you. And so, my friends, when a narcissist withdraws intimacy, whether emotional or physical, it exposes a painful but essential truth. There was never a true bond between you. They were not connecting with you. They were consuming you. Instead of asking yourself why they no longer desire you, it is far more empowering to question why you have allowed someone to treat you this way. My hope is that this message offers you clarity and gives you a deeper understanding of the psychological patterns at play so that you can protect yourself more effectively moving forward. If this content resonates with you and you'd like further guidance, please refer to the information provided below, as I currently have openings for those seeking support. And if you found value in this video, I would be grateful if you could give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.